June 1994. Psychiatric Hospital, Ohio. Ethan Carter, age 9. He was found outdoors near his home and is currently hospitalized. From the moment of admission, he has exhibited severe insomnia and generalized anxiety, showing almost no emotional response not only to me, but even to his own family. Although his eyes are always filled with heightened vigilance and fear, his overall reactions to external stimuli have become noticeably dulled. Ethan spoke very little, and each time he drew the same picture: a tall figure in a black suit. He would also sometimes draw strange marks. Circles overlapped with X's that I couldn't identify. Even during our sessions, I found it nearly impossible to engage Ethan in any meaningful conversation. Most attempts at dialogue would simply trail off into silence. More often than not, he would fix his gaze beneath the desk or in the far corners of the hospital room, completely avoiding any eye contact with me and remaining unresponsive to my questions. Occasionally, I would notice him gripping the edge of his chair or fidgeting with his fingers, as if trying to anchor himself in the unfamiliar environment. Based on my clinical observations, some of his symptoms could be interpreted as part of a post-traumatic stress response, or possibly as signs of a severe delusional anxiety disorder, though both diagnoses seemed incomplete. However, at this stage, it remains impossible to determine any definitive cause for his current condition. There are simply too many unknowns. Even his parents, who have cared for him since birth and are deeply concerned for his well-being, admitted that they have no idea what could have triggered such dramatic changes in their son's behavior. A few days ago, I heard that 5 children had gone missing from Wilkes Estate, a fact that sent a chill through the entire community. The authorities conducted an intensive search, scouring every corner of the area as if hunting for a needle in a haystack. But in the end, there was no sign of the children anywhere. It's a small, tightly knit town where everyone knows each other, which makes it even more disturbing to imagine that someone could carry out something so brazen and terrible right under everyone's noses. In the aftermath, I noticed that the despair of the missing children's families seemed to seep beyond their homes and into the hospital itself, casting a heavy shadow over everyone here. A few days ago, I overheard a group of children whispering to each other as they walked down the street, their voices barely above a hush. They said that someone or something had been appearing every night in the woods near Wilkes Farm, watching from the darkness just beyond the trees. At first, I brushed it off as nothing more than a childish ghost story, the sort of rumor that tends to spread among young kids, especially when fear and imagination get the best of them. But as the days passed, I could feel a subtle tension begin to spread throughout the entire town, a sense of unease that was no longer limited to the children, but seemed to touch everyone. Recently, there has been a sharp increase in the number of pediatric patients coming to the hospital, all reporting unexplained anxiety and obsessive-compulsive symptoms that seem to appear out of nowhere. Almost every child draws the same strange symbol, as if compelled to repeat the pattern over and over, and many describe feeling watched at night by an unseen presence that does nothing but stare. Upon further questioning, I noticed that these children all seem to be connected by the same rumor, the strange urban legend circulating through their social circles, and some of them are the very ones who first began spreading those stories at school or among friends. Another odd pattern is that some of these children insist they must obey someone, and when asked to resist, a few become distressed or even rebellious, as if torn between loyalty and fear. What stands out most, however, is that not a single case of these symptoms has been observed in older adolescents or adults, no matter how closely I look. Ethan's symptoms continued to worsen, becoming more severe and distressing with each passing day, especially as night fell. He seemed gripped by an overwhelming sense of fear after dark, his eyes darting to the corners of the room as if searching for something he couldn't name. On the walls, the overlapping O and X symbols began to multiply, spreading across the room, until nearly every surface was covered with his obsessive markings. Shadowy, faceless figures in black crayon appeared under the bed, in the corners, and along the baseboards, strange silhouettes drawn in places most would never think to look. And then, in the early hours of the morning, Ethan vanished from his hospital room without a trace. When I checked the hallway security footage, there was no sign of Ethan, nor of anyone entering or leaving the room at that time, nothing but the silent, empty corridor. After Ethan disappeared, a heavy silence seemed to settle over the entire town, leaving everyone tense and wary. Children no longer played outside after dusk. Instead, they rushed home before the sun had fully set, drawn indoors by an unspoken fear. Adults, too, began to avoid the area around Wilkes Farm, refusing to venture anywhere near the estate, even in broad daylight. This year alone, there have already been 6 reported disappearances connected to Wilkes estate, and not a single child has been found. Despite numerous searches and investigations, the police have been unable to provide any answers or clues as to what happened. All that remains now is an unspoken rule among the townspeople: never enter the woods near the farm after sundown, no matter what. On the walls, the strange ox marks continue to spread, silent evidence of what's been lost, while the people trade stories and rumors, their voices thick with anxiety and uncertainty.